RJ Davis is playing with a pure point guard for the first time in his Carolina career. So the question becomes, what should his mindset be in his senior season?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shea, and I really want to thank you for joining us for today's episode, your first listen or watch every single day. Don't forget, we're free and available anywhere you get podcasts, so subscribe right now. Coming up on today's show, I want to answer a couple listener questions, one of which is about the length of scholarship commitments and what that looks like for teams. Also, Carolina baseball gets some much needed help on the pitcher's mound. But before we get to any of that, I want to start with another listener question. And this one actually comes from a young man, really cool, excited to read this, but it's a great question about RJ Davis. Let's dive right in. This is an email from Roe Carter, R-O-W-E. He says, my name is Roe Carter. I'm 13 years old, going into 8th grade, and I think I'm the biggest Carolina fan out there. I bet you are, Roe. That's awesome. I just recently started listening to the podcast and have loved it. Man, thank you. We are so glad that you're here, Roe, and I have my own question that I would like for you to answer. And here it is. Should RJ Davis have the score first mentality or the pass first mentality in this upcoming season? First off, before we get to the question, Roe, thank you. I love that even as a young man, a young teenager, you're dialed in to the Tar Heels. You're already thinking about things like a player's mentality on the court. Keep it up, young man. I love that. But beyond how cool it is that you're dialed in, this is a great question from Roe. And so I wanted to address it right out of the gate today because it goes into this mindset of the idea that RJ is going to be working in tandem with somebody that of the type of player of which he's not been with in his Carolina career, at least. And here's what I mean. For his first 3 years, RJ has mostly shared the backcourt with Caleb Love. I know their freshman year, there was Kerwin started quite a few games. That was when he was shooting, Kerwin Walton, that is, shooting so well from three. But for the most part, the past 3 seasons, the Carolina backcourt has featured Caleb Love and RJ Davis. And that backcourt to me always felt like a very talented backcourt, but one without that true role definition that you really need on a basketball team to succeed at the highest level. Now, hear me say, a backcourt can work really well without you're the point guard, you're the shooting guard, with just two guards who interchangeably can do what they need to do. It makes me think back to the Carolina football backfield of Michael Carter and Javonte Williams a couple years ago when they just tagged in and tagged out and knew, like, just worked in tandem so well. Like, that can work really well in a backcourt. And at times it did for the Tar Heels. The 2022 NCAA tournament run is a great example of that. In fact, an interchangeable backcourt like that can just be downright devastating to the opposition when done correctly. But more often than not, over the course of the past 3 years, I would have frankly preferred Coach Davis and Coach Williams before him to say, RJ, you're running the show. You're the point guard. You're the floor general. Caleb, you are off the ball. You score at will. Or the flip-flop, whatever they wanted to do. But I think that would have been the better of the two options. RJ 1, Caleb 2. Caleb, you go score. Let RJ facilitate. Call his own number when it makes sense to do so. But just never really had that specificity of role definition that I think would have really benefited these past couple teams. But now, this upcoming season with Elliot Cadeau, it's a different ballgame because based on skill set, it would be a disservice to this team, to Elliot Cadeau, to say, RJ, you're the point guard. Elliot, you are the shooting guard. That's just not where he shines, and that's not why he's here. Let the man be a floor general, Elliot Cadeau, and let him dictate the game. So my first assumption here is that the Tar Heels this season will have better role definition in the backcourt than we've seen the past couple years. Elliot is the 1, the point guard. RJ is the 2, the shooting guard. Now, obviously, that's going to change with different personnel in the game or as situational things happen where it just makes sense for RJ to bring the ball up the court. And that's the beautiful thing about having them both out there. But all things considered, in normal play, Elliot 1, RJ 2. Now, my second assumption here is that this will, in fact, be the starting backcourt, the 2 guards that receive the lion's share of the minutes. And I think most of you listening and watching would agree with that. So, RJ, now that you're playing with a true a true point guard for the first time in your Carolina career, I want you to think scorer. Let Elliot do what he does best, and you do what you do best. Elliot is the guy with the vision, the guy that gets the ball to the right dude at the right time in the right place. RJ can do those things, but man, he can light it up. He can get to the rim. He can shoot. So Elliot bringing the ball down the court, RJ on one wing, Cormac on the other, whatever the scheme calls for, and then let's go utilize that. So, Ro, my answer to your question is pass first or score first mentality. I'm going to say score first mentality. I think that needs to be RJ's primary concern this year. And I say it that way because I do believe pass second should be a very close second to that scoring for RJ this upcoming season. Because part of the issue with last year's team is a stat that I like to keep tabs on that I just call assist percentage. It's just very simply the number of Carolina's field goals, their made baskets that are assisted. So if Carolina scores 2 baskets and there's an assist on one of them, that is 50% assist percentage. Very simple math. Last season, 2022-23, Carolina assisted on 45% of their made baskets. For context, the season before that, Hubert Davis's first, Carolina assisted on 54.1% of their made baskets, and Roy Williams last year, 2020-21, they assisted on 55.3% of their made baskets. So this past season was 10 whole percentage points lower on assist percentage than Roy Williams last season. And I think that was a big part of last year's troubles is that Carolina just didn't share the ball well. When I look at this year's roster, this is a team that I believe is going to share the ball really well. And by the way, that assist percentage number, in my opinion, should be above 50% year in and year out. You just have to share the ball at that level and help each other out. So looking at the personnel, I do believe this team projects to be back above 50%. You've got Elliot leading the way. You've got a point forward in Harrison Ingram, whether he's playing the 3 or the 4. You've got RJ who can and will facilitate, et cetera, et cetera. This team should be a better passing team. So, Ro, I said score first mentality. But my more complicated answer is that RJ should simply have a basketball mentality and let his instincts set in. Rather than focusing too far either way on score first or pass first, I think he should let his IQ dictate what he's doing. Play within the flow of the game and take what's given to him. When he's on fire like he was at times from 3 last year when his finger wasn't hurt, cut it loose, my friend. Just shoot yourself out of a hot streak because you're shooting it so much. RJ's always lethal at the line. Get to the line, pour it in, do that work. Get fouled, knock them down. And so this team could be devastatingly good with ball movement if they choose to be. That's the big caveat. This team is going to have to buy in to sharing the ball well with each other, where any of the 5 guys on the floor could beat you offensively. That's what I'm looking for. So yes, the ultimate answer to your question is I think RJ should be score first over pass first. But at the end of the day, I think he just needs to do whatever the game flow is dictating first. And that's what RJ's IQ and experience and veteran leadership is going to bring to this team. It should be a very exciting senior year for Mr. RJ Davis. Roe, thank you for the great question. Thanks so much for sending it in. Well, another great listener question coming up, and this one has to do with the length of commitment of a scholarship, a question a lot of people ask quite often from time to time, and then it's a good time in the off season to answer that. And so we'll do that in just a second. But first, I need to tell you that today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to join today. Check out, man, there's all sorts of good action on MLB stuff going on all the time. Lots of fun there. So don't miss that chance to snag a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Those Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. Friends, thanks for making Locked on Tar Heels your first listen every day. Coming up tomorrow, I think it's everyone's favorite day because it's less of me and both myself and Coach Pat Kilby. Always a great show on Wednesday. Make sure you tune in for that. Want to remind you also, there is a new fun way to submit your listener questions. I want to give you the opportunity to not just be me talking at you all, but I want us to be engaging together. And we're doing that more with listener questions, but we can do it through your faces actually being on YouTube and your voices actually being in the audio feed. So if you'd like to submit a listener question in a little more interactive way, you can record yourself just on your phone, a 15-second video, give us your name, where you're from, and just ask your question. You can do it in portrait or landscape mode. Either way is fine. And we'll get it into the show. Even if it's video, we can use the audio. Even if it's just audio, we can use it on the video form. No problems there. So the email is lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Excited to start being able to use these and get all of us involved even more together in the Locked on Tar Heels community. All right. Our next question comes from Ranjit Souri, and I hope I've pronounced your name correctly, Ranjit. If not, my most sincere apologies. I love your last name is awesome. So it's Sour. For those of you listening, it's Sour with an I on the end. So I'm assuming it's Souri. But again, Ranjit, my most humble apologies if I've not said it right. But he sends his question through a Twitter DM. Hello, Isaac. Everydayer here. What up, Everydayer? Love it. And grateful for your work. I know that the men's Tar Heel team has 3 scholarships still available for 23-24. I love your graphic for that. I'm so glad it's helpful. I love making it. I love Excel. And so I'm glad it is helpful to you. If they, the coaching staff that is, decided to give one of those to a walk-on who, say, has 2 years of eligibility left, would they be committing to give that player a scholarship for his 2 remaining years? Or would they only be committing to give it to him for the 23-24 season with no guarantee that they would renew his scholarship for 24-25? What's the norm regarding this at UNC and or in college basketball in general? This is a great question, one that I get asked pretty regularly, and I think it's always good to revisit it about once a year. So Ranjit, thank you so much for your question. The very general specific, or the very overhead general answer is that scholarships are 1-year commitments. So if I've got the Chronicles of Narnia sitting right here. So if Aslan was committing to play for my basketball team and I'm giving him a scholarship, Aslan is 1 year, even though, hopefully he's a great basketball player and he can stay all 4 years, but technically, I would be renewing his scholarship as the coach year after year after year. And different teams do this different ways. Some typically use all 13 scholarships at the level of giving them all to scholarship level players. Some will give 12 and have one that they'll use and often hand out to a walk-on, or even fewer. We are seeing in the transfer portal era, even teams using even fewer scholarships because they don't want guys sitting on the end of the bench who are scholarship level that are just going to be disgruntled and leave at the end of the year. So if we're only going to play a 10 or 11 man rotation, we're only going to give out 10 or 11 scholarships to scholarship level players and then give out 1 or 2 to walk-ons who've been part of this team and worked so hard to help make us who we are. So again, there is no commitment to provide that scholarship again next season. And just like with walk-ons, the same would be true of scholarship level players. Also, you don't technically have to do anything with the scholarships if you don't want to. But again, obviously, if you've got them left over, it just makes sense to give them to your walk-ons, the guys who are in a lot of ways really pouring even more into what this team is by how they help represent the other team in practice and things like that. Now, let me give you some examples of recently what Carolina has done with this in, the past just 6, 7, 8 years or so. I'll just give you 4 walk-ons that have received a scholarship and then answer Carolina. We had just a couple seasons ago a great example of the question here from Ron Jeep. So let's go back to 2015-16. Justin Coleman, walk-on, received a scholarship. 2017-18, Shea Rush got one. 2019-20, the COVID year, the year that ended with COVID shutting everything down, KJ Smith received a scholarship as a walk-on. And then the year after that, Ryan McAdoo got one in 2020-21. So specific to the part of the question about an example of a player with multiple years of eligibility left receiving a scholarship, and then are you committed to him for the rest of his time, or is it just you cannot give it to him again and have that scholarship freed up? Let's give an example of that. As I just said, KJ Smith received a scholarship for the 2019-20 season. That was his junior year. Really neat because obviously because of who his dad is, Kenny the Jet, he doesn't necessarily need the money. His dad could, I'm just assuming here, pay just outright for his college career. But even though the money is a thing, just the reward for KJ of I've worked so hard at this, the coaching staff is recognizing my work and rewarding that by granting me a scholarship. It speaks much bigger than the money. But anyway, KJ receives a scholarship his junior year, 2019-20. And then in 2020-21, so the next season, was another year that North Carolina did not utilize all 13 of their scholarships on scholarship level players. There were 12 of those. I'll give them to you alphabetically by their last name. Armando Bacot. This is just a little trip down memory lane. Leaky Black, Garrison Brooks, RJ Davis, Anthony Harris, Puff Johnson, Walker Kessler, Caleb Love, Sterling Manley, Andrew Playtech, Dayron Sharp, and Kerwin Walton. So those were the 12 scholarship players, or scholarship level players, I should say, that season. Now, if you were mandated to give a scholarship to a player, once you've given it to him for the rest of his time there, that would have gone to KJ Smith again. But because these are just 1-year commitments, the 13th scholarship that year, as I just said a minute ago, went to Ryan McAdoo rather than KJ having it for a second straight year. Not that KJ didn't earn it or deserve it, or the coaching staff think him not worthy of it any longer. It's just you're kind of spreading the love around to the various walk-ons that have been part of your team. So it's like, KJ, man, so great to be able to give it to you last year. This year, we're going to give it to Ryan for everything he's done for this program. So that's kind of where you go there. And looking at scholarships kind of on the bigger level, you folks out there might or might not be aware, Division I NCAA, Division II NCAA can give out scholarships. Division III cannot. But going on down, NAIA, that was the division I was in college at Milligan College, now Milligan University. We were NAIA, so you could give out scholarships. You can also give scholarships at the junior college level. It's just Division III is the only one that can't give them out. Now, obviously, here's the other thing. Scholarships can be taken away if you like get into legal trouble or get kicked off a team, or you are not in good academic standing. Any of these kind of things can be taken away. And so That's just kind of some of the backstory on that. Now, specific to the Tar Heels for this upcoming season, the 23-24 season, as Ranjit said, there are 3 scholarships still out there. Only 10 have been accounted for at this point for scholarship level players. I'm of the mind now that Carolina might sign another player, maybe 2. I do not think they will utilize all 13. And in fact, I think probably just 11, maybe even sticking at 10. I'm really curious to see what happens. All that to say, I do believe that Carolina is going to wind up giving multiple walk-ons scholarships for the upcoming season. Obviously, we're going to keep tabs on that as we go from here at the end of June up through the beginning of the season, and that news will leak out when it becomes known. So, Ranjit, thank you so much for that great question. Always good to get kind of inside the numbers and the logistics of all those kind of things. Well, looking at Carolina baseball, which, by the way, the College World Series wrapped up last night on Tuesday. Carolina's big issue last year, in my opinion, was pitching. They got some big help from that recently, and I want to tell you about that in just a second. All right, Carolina baseball recently got some great news in terms of adding pitching help, which for me, once again, was the thorn in the side of the Tar Heels this past season. That they just lacked consistent high-level starting pitching. Well, enter Shea Sprague transferring over from Elon. Scott Forbes is working hard to rectify that pitching issue from this season that was just completed. Now, what do you need to know about Shea Sprague? Here's all you need to know. Just like yours truly, he's a southpaw. He's a lefty. Enough said. I don't even need. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, there's more to say, but I'm just always keen on my lefty counterparts. That's really cool. So Sprague comes from Massachusetts. Actually attended Boston College High School, which is probably that means that's somewhere on the campus of Boston College. I've seen other high schools like that, and that's what it is. Like where I went to college in Johnson City, Tennessee, that's where East Tennessee State University is. And they had a high school right there on their campus, just called University High School. And so that's what I'm assuming Boston College High School is. Never been up there. Been to Boston once. It was awesome. Loved it. But would love to go back sometime. Anyway, Sprague just finished his sophomore year. So he has 2 years of eligibility remaining for the Tar Heels. And in terms of his pitching arsenal, he's not one of these dudes that's just going to blow you away with, mid to upper 90s speed. In fact, he's sitting about 10 miles an hour slower than that with his fastball. Sits 83 to 85, has a breaking ball that's in the mid 70s. Same with his changeup. But man, he has gotten the job done for Elon these past 2 years. You ain't got to throw it 8 million miles an hour. But boy, if you can be like Greg Maddoxy and just place the ball where it needs to be with dirty movement, that's all you need. So, Sprague, let me give you some of his accolades. His freshman year, Elon is in the Colonial Athletic Association, the CAA. So, his freshman year, all CAA first team. I'm not saying the rookie team, the freshman team, like the all CAA team, first team as a freshman. Really cool stuff there. But Sprague was the CAA co-rookie of the year that year. He was on the CAA all-rookie team. He better be if he's on the all-conference first team. Was named the Collegiate Baseball Freshman All-America that year. He was the conference co-pitcher of the week one time, the conference co-rookie of the week twice. And then this most recent year, once again, was on the first team All-CAA, became Elon's kind of ace, had 15 starts, compiled a 7-3 record, 2.69 ERA, 1.24 whip. And perhaps something that's really important is just he was an innings eater for Elon. That's something you need your starters to be able to do. Had 90 innings pitched. The next closest was like 63. And so far and away led his team in innings pitched. And I know you might look at that and not think that's a massive deal. That is a big deal. Someone who, even on the night or a day when they just don't have their usual stuff, is able to find a way to work through jams, get out of it, and keep your team close, even if you aren't as crisp as normal. Now, overall for Sprague, compiled a 13-6 record at Elon, 2.36 ERA, which is an Elon Division I record. Not a Division I in totality record, but a Division I Elon record. Had 34 total outings, 25 of which were starts in his career at Elon. I love this. 123 strikeouts to just 32 walks. That is a great strikeout to walk ratio. And that's something, man, walks kill me. So I was a pitcher, helped a lot with pitching staffs and other things. But walks are something that kill you. So I love this. This is a man that throws strikes and is working to get you out. So love the Tar Heels bringing in Sprague from Elon. I hate it for Elon, man. I saw some social media stuff that they're like, oh, we are crushed by this news. But this is the way of things go. So hopefully Sprague can be part of a more consistent pitching staff next season. Will obviously be a major priority for the Diamond Heels, working to make up for last season's pitching woes. P.S. This is also a good time to say, while we're talking about Carolina baseball, Danny Serretti has been promoted to Double-A within the Detroit Tigers organization. Love to hear that news. P.P.S. For those of you who are watching, you see that I'm wearing some kind of random t-shirt and random red hat, and I've just described it to you for those of you who are listening to the show. That's because tonight I'm actually recording this on late Monday night into Tuesday early morning. My son's little league team, which I'm the head coach of, has had kind of a rough year. They're in the younger age bracket of the league they're in. And so we started our league tournament tonight. And we only had 2 wins on the season. We were 2-10, but the guys have just been really working hard. And wouldn't you know it, we won our first round tournament game tonight. So just a really neat moment. And we actually won it on a walk-off, and just a really cool moment for the guys who've just been working hard and learning. And so, man, I was like, I want to honor them by wearing my shirt and hat on the show today. So we play again Wednesday. It's a team that of those 2 wins is a team we beat. So maybe we could win again. The problem is on Thursday, I'm leaving for church camp. So there you go. But anyway, I love this community, Locked On Tar Heels, and she wanted to share that fun news with you all. That's it for today's episode of Locked On Tar Heels. Big thanks to the guys who sent in questions that we answered on today's show. Really appreciate you both and for being part of this community. Again, it means the world that we are all in on this together. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Heels. You can follow me on Twitter at Isaac Shade. Again, send in questions or anything else you want to talk about to our email address, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. I really love engaging with you all in that way. Well, folks, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be right back with you tomorrow with our guy, Coach Pat Kilby. But until then, say it with me. Peace.